makes you wonder why the world's greatest director has gathered you here today. Stupid actors, for today, I make combat with Kung Fu Chaos.
Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, welcome back to my video game review series. So today we're going to be looking at another classic for the original Xbox, Kung Fu Chaos, released in 2003, developed by Just Add Monsters. This is a game that earlier this year actually turned 20 years old. So it's a game that I have a bit of a weird history with. Back in the day, when I got my original Xbox, I used to get these Xbox magazines from time to time, and occasionally they would come with a demo disc. And I remember one particular demo I had was for this game, Kung Fu Chaos. I played the demo many times throughout the years, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But for some reason I never actually got round to buying the full game until very recently. So yeah, playing through the game for this review was my first time doing so. The game is essentially an action beat-em-up style fighting game. The story of the game is a pretty bizarre one. Shao Ting, who is an aspiring action movie director, is attempting to make an old school 70s style kung fu movie called Kung Fu Chaos.
So stop standing around and start acting! Lights, camera! No, let's turn on the lights, idiot!
Shao Ting acts as the narrator for the game, as well as the game's main villain. The game is basically split up into several different modes. The main feature of the game is the ninja challenges. These act as the game's main campaign. In the beginning of the game you get to select your character. There are 6 playable characters to choose from, as well as 3 unlockable ones, more on those later. The ninja challenges consist of a whole bunch of separate levels. With the game's story being a kung fu movie, your character is the lead actor, and each of the game's levels consist of a particular scene and movie set. Your character will have to traverse each level, defeating hordes of evil ninja bad guys, completing a series of wacky, over-the-top challenges, performing insane stunts, wowing the audience, and essentially saving the world. While this is going on, the shady director Shao Ting will constantly bombard you with dangerous stunts and set pieces, and will continuously put you in danger, forcing you and the stuntmen to take part in life-threatening situations. The levels in the game are an absolute blast, and there are plenty of them. Some of them will be purely combat based, with you basically fighting your way through waves and waves of ninjas before the time limit runs out. Others will have you traverse the level, fighting your way past these ninjas, while the level itself falls apart around you, and you have to escape. Some levels even have you undertake a particular challenge, such as a minigame. Some of these are absolutely hilarious and an absolute blast to play. I particularly like Water Whirl. That level is great. In addition to these, there are plenty of levels that feel unique and memorable in their own way. Some levels are even based on real-life movies, and the game does its best to satirise movies in general. For example, there are levels in old Asian villages, like old 70s kung fu movies. Levels on the Titanic, including an iceberg level, which reminded me of Crash Bash. In fact, I'm pretty certain Crash Bash was the inspiration for it. Levels during an alien invasion, and even some more horror-themed levels. Throughout these, the director Shao Ting will narrate over them, and his dialogue is utterly hilarious. He will also give you a short cutscene introducing each level, and will grade you on completing each level. The game's combat is pretty simple, yet a lot of fun. You can strike enemies with both light and heavy attacks, and can mix these up in combinations. You can also block enemy attacks and counter them. The enemy AI is surprisingly good for the time too. Certain enemies will block, certain enemies will counter you, and they all have their own individual attacks. Each character will also have their own grappling moves, as well as their own individual taunts. If you manage to knock an enemy to the ground, you can pick them up and throw them. In some cases you can even throw them off ledges. Throughout the story, you get a series of short tutorial levels, which introduce you to the game's controls and combat mechanics. One of the best things about the game's combat is the special moves. These can be unlocked by knocking down an enemy and using a well-timed taunt. Do this 3 times and your character will unlock their super move. They can basically wipe out all enemies on screen and bail you out in tough battles. I found myself doing this a lot. Some of these look really badass and each character's super move is unique. Sadly, despite the fun combat, there isn't really a whole lot of enemy variety. You mostly fight the same 5 or so ninja variants throughout the whole game, and very rarely do you get any new types of enemies. Occasionally there will be enemies who are immune to regular attacks, and can only be defeated using specific throwing weapons, but these are few and far between. The game does have plenty of boss battles however. At certain points in the story, you will face off against one of the other playable characters from the roster. Defeating these characters can be a lot of fun, and it's fun to play these levels with different characters. So yeah, despite the lack of overall enemy variety, at least the game has some fun boss battles. I mentioned before that there are 3 unlockable characters. Some of these can be unlocked by simply completing the game, others require a specific score to unlock. When completing levels, depending on your efficiency in combat, you are awarded a score of stars. The highest score you can get is 5. 3 stars is usually necessary to unlock the next level. Any lower than that and you'll have to replay. Getting 5 stars in every level is challenging, but possible. When you do this, you unlock pretty much everything. It takes a while to do, and there's a lot of grinding, but thankfully the game is a lot of fun, so you might enjoy it. The final boss battle, for example, is locked behind this requirement. One criticism I do have of the game, however, is that each playable character, aside from their visual aesthetic and their voice and one-liners, aren't really that different from one another. Meaning there isn't really a huge difference in experience when playing through the game as different characters. It's still fun, but it's a bit of a shallow experience. In addition to the main story, the game also has several different modes. For example, you have Battle Mode. This allows you to once again choose a character to play through the levels in sort of a tournament format. Rather than defeating ninjas and completing the levels as normal, you instead compete against the other playable characters in the game. These battles are a blast to play. You can also choose to play in a team of 2 against another team, or you can just do a free-for-all. You also have Championship, which is a similar type of concept, playing in a tournament, as well as Mini-Series, which is a series of random levels. These are also quite fun. Aside from all this, the game has several bonus features. For example, each character has their own alternative costume that can be unlocked by defeating the character as themselves in the game's story. These look great. When completing the story as each character, that character will get their own ending cutscene.
You and I just got 5-star finish, so let's party like it's 1979 and limbo!
The belly is the brain, and the brain is the belly, you stupid and fat.
You can replay these in the game's gallery. You also get a bio on each of the game's characters that you can read. Features like this are always appreciated by me. In addition to these features, the game also has some promotional material. For example, you get 2 playable demos in the menu. One of them being for the game MechAssault, and another being for an NFL game. You also get a trailer for the Xbox mascot platformer game Blinks. These were quite cool and an interesting addition to the game. So yeah, you get plenty of bonus features in this game. The game also has a pretty awesome soundtrack. Some of the music in the game is actually music from classic kung fu movies. For example, the game's main theme song is the main theme song from Enter the Dragon, starring Bruce Lee. The game's final boss battle even has the song Kung Fu Fighting playing in the background. So yeah, I'm sure fans of classic martial arts and action movies will appreciate that. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Kung Fu Chaos. It's a relatively simple game, but one that I had a lot of fun with. The voice acting is funny for the most part, and the combat is fun. And aside from a lack of overall variety and depth, I don't really have any major criticisms for the game. But if truth be told, it's not a masterpiece or anything like that. It's a game I had fun with, but it's a game that, if truth be told, doesn't have as much content as you might expect. It's a solid Xbox game that's worth playing if you like action games. I give Kung Fu Chaos a solid 7 out of 10. A fun action game that I'd recommend for a cheap price. And you could definitely do a lot worse. Thanks for watching, guys. I really enjoyed playing and reviewing Kung Fu Chaos. Let me know what you guys think. Stay tuned for more retrospective video game reviews. I have a lot of reviews coming to the channel in the near future. Thanks for watching and God bless.
boy monkey! We made a masterpiece of my movie! Oh.